So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's another Matchfit football podcast. I'm Darren Potts, your host, as always, here on the show. If there's any Matchfit or any footballing needs, remember to head over to Matchfit Football on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Today's guest, he is a footballer for Pacific FC. They qualified for the playoffs. They're going strong. They're still in the Canada Cup. Everything is happening for Pacific FC this season, and I'm joined by Jordan Haynes. So, Jordan, welcome to the show. Delighted to get you here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, as I said, delighted to get you here, and it's been a whirlwind of a season for you guys. I know sort of the football that the Canadian Premier League, it kind of kicked off with a bang whenever it started a couple of years ago, and then obviously everything that happened kind of shut it down, playing behind closed doors and stuff. But this season with fans back, it's been an absolutely brilliant season for you guys. How are you enjoying it?
It's actually been like somewhat of a dream come true. So I joined the club last year, so I was right in the thick of it with obviously, like you said, in the COVID things getting shut down, going behind closed doors. So like everyone else that had leagues, some had to do the bubble format. And it wasn't much of a great first season for me to have that kind of an experience, but it was what it was, and then getting back to somewhat of a normal season this year, like you said, everything's just been kind of clicking for us. Currently sitting at top of the table with two matches left, and in the semifinals playing against TFC this coming November 3rd. So everything's been going really good. It's been an unreal experience so far.
And what was it like at the start of the season? Because it was sort of the first season back, so to speak, if I can use those terms, if I can use the word back, with fans and everything beginning to get back to normal, so to speak. But what was the expectations at the start of the season, and compare that to where you guys are now? You mentioned it's a bit of a dream for you. Are you guys happy with where you are, or is it very much like now that we're here, we want to keep going and we want to see it through?
I'd say it's a bit of both, really. Like you said, coming back, it was kind of a weird start too for our season because we all played our first 8 games in a bubble format, and then started the regular season midway through. So it was kind of we're used to this, but also like, oh, it's supposed to be normal, but it's not. So it's kind of like a bit of a bit of both, here and there, where it's back, but it's not back. And then, once we finally got out of the bubble in Winnipeg, the regular season, obviously midway through kicked off, and it was kind of a little weird, you could say, because COVID is still much alive. It was before vaccines had fully come through, everyone getting fully after 2 doses, 2 weeks, so it was kind of a little weird because, some people might be skeptical to come, some people might be, skeptical to even come near players and people in the stands. And I kind of felt it myself, whereas a little different, but, the atmosphere was crazy because more people were just loving the fact that, football's back and they could finally come out to the game. And our very first game, we had a great start out of the bubble, and then we won, a few games at home, and the atmosphere was crazy. It was just so good to be able to have back, even having like a smaller stadium that we do at Pacific. The fans are electric. They love coming to games, and it's always a good atmosphere there.
That is one of the things I have noticed with Pacific FC, and I've only got over to the one game, but when I have been there, that's what I've noticed, the fervency and the energy of the fans, and there's an excitement when fans are coming in, and there's something special, I think, brewing with the Canadian Premier League. And if I couple that alongside with how well the national team's doing, it really seems like football or soccer, if we word it that way, is certainly on the grow here in Canada.
Yeah, I would have to agree. It's only going up, and it's not just obviously Pacific that has a good atmosphere, and the good thing with it too is obviously everyone has supporters and diehards, within the stadium, but when stuff is going well and exciting, excite goal, exciting play, tackle, free kick, whatever is happening, almost the whole stadium is jumping in on the excitement, and it's like felt like as a whole family there, you know. And like I said just before, it's not just us. We go to games away where the atmosphere is just as good, if not, I would say a little bit less. Obviously, I'm a little biased in saying Pacific has the best fans, but it does help that it's not just the League of Canada that's, you know, growing, and it's finally we have our own tier one league, but the national team, as we speak right now, is just, you know, killing it in their qualifications for the World Cup. You know, we've just cracked the top 50 in in FIFA's rankings for the first time in years and years and years. And it's, you know, you could say it's coincidence, but I mean, I don't think it is that both the league and the national team are excelling currently.
Yeah, there's no way it's a coincidence. I just think it's the level of athlete and the level of player is constantly evolving and getting better and going up, and Canada's certainly growing alongside that. And the quality of players coming through from Canada now is phenomenal. You know, there's Canadian players littered all across Europe in the top leagues as well. Obviously, getting you know their own Premier League is massive. And one of the things about the Canadian Premier League and Pacific FC, you know, we mentioned, you know, the fervency and the energy of the fans, and you mentioned the family atmosphere, you know, that you felt since being there. Tell me a little bit about Pacific FC as a club and the family nature, and how it runs, and how you felt since joining Pacific.
Like I said, it's been somewhat of a dream come true earlier. It really has, in terms of not just playing and doing well, but just living out here on the island is been a dream come true. I've been, you know, to other teams where it's been, you know, strictly kind of business, like, where it's, you know, I'm here just to play football and everyone is just doing their job. But, you know, when you show up to training in the morning, you know, we're with everyone. We're there with the players, we're there with the coaches, the front end staff. You know, we're there with the sales team, we're there with GMs. Like, everyone's always there day to day, and the atmosphere of just being there on a day to day basis is very family like as well, where everyone, you know, is super friendly. Everyone is there trying to achieve the same goal. Where you know, it might be a little split where we don't even, you know, some teams may not even ever see the front end staff, and they don't see the behind the scenes, but everyone there is together, and, you know, everyone gets along. It's been great to have that as well, part of like the family.
Absolutely. And I think that obviously for you guys as players, you know, that must encourage you guys to, you know, to perform when you feel that atmosphere and that energy and that positivity. You know, whether you guys are going out to trade, whether you guys are going out to play, you must feel that energy, so to speak, to go out and play. So tell me a little bit about training and the intensity and the professionalism of training. How important is it to take training professionally?
It is probably more important, in my opinion, to be giving your 100% and pushing yourself in training than it is in a game. Because if, you know, that may come off as silly because the game is where it matters, but um, the game is only a product of how you train. If you train, you know, all week or for multiple weeks at a time, and it's a low level, you're not pushing yourself, you're not pushing your teammates, you won't be able to perform as a player in the game. It is super important every day to be in a good mindset, to be positive, to yourself and to your teammates. And we've got some of the best coaches, honestly, to help with that, because they've all had previous professional experience. Paul Moduka, our head coach, you know, recently just retired, and he's played at the top level internationally for all over Europe and with his national team in Norway. And, you know, he knows exactly how a proper training environment should be. And, you know, he's very, very vocal and very upfront if something's not correct, and he sees people say maybe slacking off or not doing the right things, he'll get right on you, to make sure you're really doing everything you can in training. And then that obviously transpires to us as players. If we see ourselves or we see other players on our team not doing it, then we push each other.
It's fantastic to hear that because the standard is set so high, and it's almost like you maintain that standards, and then that's what brings it out in the games, and that's obviously served you well all season, given the league position, given where you are in the cups as well. One of the key moments this season in the cup, and it was the game that I got across for, was Pacific and the Whitecaps. That has to
Right.
be one of the best memories for you from maybe since you've put on a Pacific shirt. I know you've spent time at Toronto, you spent time at the Whitecaps. What was that like for you, that whole experience, and for you guys at Pacific and the fans and everyone that encompassed that night? Because that was a phenomenal, not only just a phenomenal result for you, it was a phenomenal game of football, and it was a phenomenal atmosphere and advert for football here in BC.
You hit the nail on the head a few times there. For me personally, it actually was the best game of my life, actually, because it was a very personal game for me. Like you said, I spent quite a bit of time with the Whitecaps football club, and for me to be able to win that game the way we did too, it wasn't like the way sometimes the underdog wins a game where they just set up two banks of four, two strikers, whatever, defend on the 18, hit them on the counter, and maybe we'll score a set piece, whatever, but just defend for our lives and we'll see how it goes. We came out like guns ablazing. We were going to take the game to them, and to win in the fashion that we did with 4 goals. And I obviously it was an upset, but the way we did it was the biggest thing. And for me personally, like I said, playing there before, to be able to have done that to my old club, for whatever reason, some people say is what am I trying to say? The kind of stick it to them, like this is this is for getting rid of me, kind of thing. But not just as myself, for the club itself and for the fans and whoever was there that night. Obviously, you said you were there. It was unbelievable. We had a fully packed stadium. Obviously some people were there taking the ferry over from Vancouver to cheer for their team, but it was definitely a Pacific night. Every time we scored, every time there was a crazy moment in the game, it was amazing. We almost broke the siding where fans were when we were celebrating. It was unbelievable. And I'm sure for Pacific supporters themselves, it had to have been the best game they've been to as well, because it really was kind of the one game where you would say that's our season as a whole. Like first place right now in the CPL semifinals against Toronto FC, soon in the Canada Championship. From obviously starting off winning that game, it kind of just puts our team together as that's who we are.
Yeah, it is. It's sort of really kind of encompasses everything about you guys this season. And I think one of the things that you said there, which I really caught, was it wasn't like an underdog story where it was banks of four, park the bus, smash and grab. It was very much let's get out, let's get in their face, let's play our way of playing football, let's attack, let's get at them, let's even try and control the ball, control possession. There was no fear. And that's what I noticed as a fan. Sometimes you go to these games where it is an underdog versus a favourite in cup games, and you certainly see a team coming out being a bit wary of an opponent, but there was a fearlessness I felt about Pacific that night, where there was just a desire to go out and play. And about that mindset, would that come down from the coaching staff, the players, the self-belief in the group of players? What's that atmosphere like in the changing room?
Yeah, we obviously expect the best from us. We wouldn't go into any game thinking we can lose or thinking we're going to lose. We obviously go into every game believing we can win. And this being our first game against an MLS team, we didn't want to change that mindset. Obviously, there's two teams on the field, and it's a best of one game. Whoever wins wins. So why not just go out and give everything you can, right? Like I said, we didn't want to let them dictate the game, and try and catch them on a lucky counter, and just defend the whole game. We wanted to do what we thought we could and leave it in our hands, you could say, and really take it to them. So the mindset isn't just obviously one person, a couple people saying it, and then coming from say a leader. We all really, you could see just by the way everyone played, that every single person on the field and every single person on the bench and everyone even in the stands, I'd argue, or watching the game, believe that we were going to win that game.
It was an incredible game of football, and I think, like I said, it epitomizes a lot of what Pacific FC are about the style of play and things like that. But I want to touch on a topic that you've mentioned several times. It's mindset. How important is a strong mindset and having the mentality to be driven to succeed and consistently perform at the top level? How important is that for a professional footballer to succeed?
Um, I would say it is probably the most important thing, in the modern day football, because, or I would say, over the years, people might think it's a physical game. Everything has to do with technique and your physicality, but it's become a much more, in my opinion, methodical game nowadays in the modern day football, where it's not just about how athletic you are and how good is your first touch. Can you kick a ball 80 yards? It's a lot about mind games, knowing what the player is going to do, their tendencies. What am I good at? How am I going to exploit this situation? How can I turn it in my favor? And it's not just about on the fly thinking. It's about mindset going into it. Being positive, encouraging people around me. It's not just a one man show. It's obviously a team game. 11 players on the field, 18 players rostered, and coaches. So if I'm an absolutely, specimen when it comes to my physicality, sprinting and, jumping high, strength, whatever it may be that I excel at, it's not going to get you far unless you can't, use your brain, because football isn't obviously what you see on the field for 90 minutes for a game. It's what you do. It's what you do day to day in training. It's what you do after training. It's what you do when you sleep. It's what everything that you do leading up to that game is really what transpires on the field. And, being super fast or being, having a great first touch isn't going to excel you what you're doing at home, what you're doing at night, training. What excels you is like how you train your mind and going into these things.
Yeah, it is. It encompasses everything, isn't it? It's even your nutrition, your hydration, your sleep pattern. It's everything, and it's almost what we would see as fans for 90 minutes on a pitch. That's almost just the end product. The behind the scenes or behind the curtain is like pretty much everything else that we maybe don't see, but that's what actually contributes to that performance on a pitch. And it all comes from that mindset. And from that mindset, you obviously have to be heavily motivated to be able to operate at that level. So if I could ask you this, what motivates you? What makes you want to pursue excellence?
I grew up as a very competitive person. So when I first started, getting into sports, I didn't just play soccer. I played almost anything I could. And my initial drive was I just wanted to win at everything I did. It's a very, not childish, but, childlike mindset where I just want to be the best at everything, and some people may lose it. Some people keep it. It may, transform in some way. And I kind of kept that mindset where I just want to be the best at everything I can, or everything that I do. Obviously, I know I'm not good at certain things, but if I'm doing something, I want to be the best that I can be. And that's kind of what's driven me to, kind of turn football into a career. And I just want to be the best that I can. So every day at training, when I go home, I'm not doing things that would say hinder my performance. When I show up at training, I try to give my 100% that I can, because I know it's gonna, do me well in the long run. And that's what's kind of driven me, to to get to this point and to push on is pretty much just wanting to be the best that I can be.
And with that mentality of being the best you can be, would you set yourself goals at all throughout the season or for the season? And if so, what type of goals would you set, or how would you measure yourself?
I'm pretty good with setting goals actually. My goals aren't super outrageous. Set one goal for my whole life, and that's the goal I achieve or I try to achieve. I like to set goals that are always attainable, in my opinion. And I like to set many. So a goal may be for this 1 week. It could be for this game, what I want to do for this goal, or what do I want to do for these next couple of weeks, or what do I want to do at training tomorrow. But generally, it's kind of something that I think that I've needed to work on in say games previously, or training previously, or say my coaches have pointed out something that could be something for me to work on. And they can be anything from okay, I want to really make sure I win all my headers this match. I'm up against a pacey winger. I want to make sure I always get really tight and don't let the winger ever get an opportunity to use his pace or his trickery on the ball. And then I'll always set a season-long goal, but it's pretty vague. It's never like a one thing where I want to make sure I get 5 assists and start 25 games. It's usually okay, I want to grow on what I did last year. So last year, obviously, we had a shorter season. I got some good minutes playing with one of the best players in the league, in my opinion, Marcel de Jong, and I really kind of proved myself as a player. And then I wanted to grow on that. I want to say, okay, I want to become the starter this season. I want to grow and do all the things that I did previously, play simple, be strong in the tackle, use my voice to help my teammates around me, whether it be tactically or just encouraging them.
Yeah.
And every day I kind of try to check it, or every game or every few training sessions, I like to check in on obviously the end goal. But they're never usually like career long goals. It's really just the season and little goals along the way, because I feel the little goals will obviously help you attain the end season, or the end goal for the season, where they all kind of still link up with the end goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all those small goals, they all lead to somewhere. You know what I mean? It's like you keep short accounts with yourself, those short goals, those win every header this game, win every tackle this game, this winger doesn't get a chance this game. Little things like that, and it all builds to obviously the ultimate goal, which is your team winning 3 points on a Saturday or a Sunday or whenever the game may be, or last night where it was a Tuesday night. You get your 3 points at the end, those small goals, and they ultimately lead to a successful season for your team. But to move on slightly to something else, I call this portion the match fit performance portion of the podcast. Give me a typical day in your life, of a training day in your life at Pacific FC.
Yeah, so the most common training day will lead to me waking up in the morning at around 7:30, 8 a.m. My report time for training is 8:45. So waking up and leaving, I like to have somewhat of a relaxing morning where I eat the same breakfast every day. I have a bowl of oatmeal and put a lot of good nutritious stuff in there, like protein powder, peanut butter, frozen blueberries, good oats, and then head off to training. Training starts will be 10 a.m. So I have just over an hour, obviously, to prepare for training. And in that time, I don't just, wait for training to happen, get changed right away, then start doing prehab exercises. So obviously, it's a long season. Everyone have different kind of niggling injuries or places they need to work on for strengths, weaknesses. And we've been usually given those to us by our strength and conditioning coaches. And I do those in that time, as well as preparing for the training session. So I like to do a good in the change room warm up where I get all my muscles firing. So once training does start, I don't need to be warm to start training. I'm already ready to go once training starts. Then obviously we have our training session. Then when training's done, we'll have sometimes right after training, we'll be able to see a chiropractor. We'll have massages. We'll have Pilates sessions or a gym workout. And they obviously vary day to day. And then the day is usually done in terms of training with the club at around 1 to 2 p.m. And then I'm on my own. So once I get home, I like to, obviously do some relaxing stuff. I don't like to do too much too much of a physically demanding day afterwards. I like to recover. So I might just, mellow out on the couch for a little bit, or, play some video games with some friends, or watch a movie with my girlfriend. And then usually a nice, good home cooked meal with my girlfriend as well. And then somewhat of an early bed, anywhere between 10 to 10:30 to get the next day ready.
It's a very full day when you're a professional footballer, with everything that comes with it, because you have to be so switched on to everything. Like you mentioned, the niggling injuries, or the prehab before working out, before going to training. Do you find that that's helped you over the course of your career? Because a lot of our listeners are going to be kids who want to become professional footballers, or young adults who have maybe signed their first professional contract, or maybe in an academy somewhere. And we're giving them little golden nuggets of wisdom throughout this podcast. And what I want to know is what you do before you actually start corporate training. When you go in early and you start doing your stretches or your little warm up of, working out the little things you have niggles with, has that helped you, that individual focus, throughout your career?
100%. So when obviously the team training starts at 10, obviously that's not the beginning of training for you personally. It's just when obviously everyone starts together. Those exercises, stretches, strength exercises, or using soft tissue work, whether it be like a softball, massage gun, whatever, is just as important because you need to take care of your body now more than ever, with how physically demanding the game is getting. Everyone's training more, everyone's training harder, everyone's doing stuff after training. Games are coming thick and fast. Every season, usually you'd play once a week. We've played almost once every 4 days this season. And if you're not on top of your recovery, your nutrition, your prehab, you will break down, and it's what'll obviously hurt you if you can't play, because the whole point is obviously games. And if you can't prepare in training and what you do leading up to the game, then you won't be able to play. So obviously the biggest thing stopping you would be an injury. And it is so important to do multiple things before training. It's not just mobility, it's not just soft tissue work, it's not just strength exercises. You do have to do them all, because they'll all play a part in keeping you healthy. You obviously need to do the stretches to stay limber. If you're stiff, obviously the older you get, you may not see it when you're younger. I saw it, or I didn't see it when I was younger. When I was a kid, I thought I could run forever. I could never get hurt. I always felt energetic. Never felt stiff. You may have sore muscles, but you felt like Superman. And staying on top of stretching is very important. Staying on top of getting into your muscles with soft tissue work, making sure they're nice and loose. And then obviously the strength exercises. If you're someone with a history of groin problems, you need to make sure you're doing exercises specifically to one, strengthen the groin, and two, make sure the groin's warm for when you start training. Because if you don't get it warm, then obviously you're much more likely to get hurt. So those prehab routines, I would say, are extremely important if I were to put a cap on obviously what you need to do before training.
And that's the thing as well, like there's so much that goes into what you need to do before training, and it's individual focused towards whatever that person might need. So what you do might be different to what someone else does. But what's very very interesting about your journey and your story, and maybe anyone that plays in the in the Canadian Premier League, is the amount of sheer travel. You mentioned you sometimes you could have a game every 4 days. There is an enormous amount of traveling involved with this league. And I think, especially for a lot of our listeners in the UK is incredibly small compared to Canada. For example, you can fit like, was it 14 United Kingdoms inside British Columbia, I think, or something like that. But when you guys go away, you're not bouncing on a train and going 2 hours down the road. You're flying 5, sometimes 6 hours across the country, multiple flights and things like that. So your body, your nutrition, your hydration, your sleep, everything has to be on it. In terms of the travel schedule and stuff, is that something that you have to factor into your recovery, into your warm ups and things like that, trying to figure all that out on top of playing a game of football?
It does, yeah. So, like you said, the amount of traveling is crazy for Canada, and being located in Victoria, British Columbia, we're on the westmost side of Canada, and we obviously have games on almost the eastmost side of Canada in Halifax. We went there this year, um, and the travel was crazy. Like it's the whole day. You don't leave the country, but you're gone for the entire day, right? And traveling by airplane really takes a toll on your body. So if you don't do the things that you can to help yourself recover, you're going to be stiff for 2 days even, because you're going to be sitting down in an airplane all cramped, and up in the sky where it's much different air than it is down on the ground. It's going to be much drier, so you're going to be dehydrated, you're going to be tight, you're going to be sore, and you need to make sure you're really doing all the things that you can in terms of recovery to be prepared for the game, because you're not just traveling and then playing a game in a week. You travel and play a game the next day or 2 days from then. So it's very, very important that you do what you can before you leave, that you do what you can during the flight, whether it be you get good equipment such as like compression pants or socks, um, having massage gun with you on hand, getting up every time you can, every hour or half hour if you can, to just move your legs, get your blood flowing, and then having water with you at all times. And then when obviously when you get there, doing a good say pool recovery session or a walk and stretch, whatever it is. Obviously people have preferences. Some may say they would like to do a light workout in the gym, or some might like to do a pool session in a hot tub going hot and cold, or a walk and stretch. So what you got to find the stuff that's good for you, but you do have to do it, otherwise it will hinder you in the game once you've traveled 6, 7, 8 hours to just play a game.
Yeah, exactly. And to put into context for our listeners, Halifax, Nova Scotia is closer to Dublin, Ireland than it is to Victoria, British Columbia. To put that into context for people listening, that's how far Jordan and Pacific and vice versa when Halifax are coming out to BC, that's how far these guys are actually traveling prior to playing a game of football. And it's incredible. And you mentioned, the pool session or the hot pool session and massages and stuff like that. In terms of your recovery, what do you use? What methods do you like to use in terms of, to help aid your recovery?
I own my own massage gun. I like to use it on muscle groups that are generally always tight for me, to make sure I'm not stiff once I get out. I like to get up during the plane, because me sitting down, I've actually got a pretty tight back, so on a plane is actually really bad for me. So if I'm not getting up, then I can even wake up the next morning with a sore lower back. So doing those things that I can on the plane are really necessary for me. And then on top of using the massage gun, my team will always have a nice pool session once we get there. And those generally are really good for me too. I like to get into um, a good movement, pattern that we do with the team, and then once we're on our own time, I like to, kind of relax a bit in the hot tub just to let my muscles relax from the long travel day. That's kind of my preference. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's vital to know what works for you as well, and you're able to, to pinpoint that you have your own massage gun and you know how you work in the swimming pool and then into the hot tub and everything that comes alongside that. But as we begin to wrap this up, I want to ask you a couple of quick fire sort of questions to find out a bit more just about you and about your mindset and have a bit of fun with you. What's the best piece of coaching advice that you've ever received?
Ooh, that's a good question. Like you said, rapid fire. I like to, kind of say instinctively. Um, the best piece of advice I actually got was when I was a young player. I was, I believe, 12 or 13 years old, and when I was still living in Ontario. It was when I was playing in the provincial system here in Canada, and my coach Patrick Tobo gave me, or he loved to say this line that talk is cheap. And when you're young, you may not really understand what he's saying. You may either have it go in through one ear and out the other, or you may not fully understand what it is. But it really means that whatever you say means nothing unless you do it. So you can say all this stuff, and if you don't do it, then it means nothing, right? Like you can have goals, and you can have a good mindset, or you may say you want to have a good mindset, but if you don't actually do it, then obviously nothing will transpire. So you really got to make sure that you do the things that you say, and don't just be a broken record and having talk be meaning nothing and you don't do anything. That's what I've taken away.
Yeah, I mean, some of the favorite my favorite players that when I was a kid growing up, Roy Keane, Steven Gerrard, and when I hear people talk about them, they always talked about them as leaders, but they always talked about them as leading by example, that they would never shouting and screaming. They were just first on the training pitch, they gave 100% and then they left. And that's what left the impression on most people. And I always find that fascinating, just to go in there and give that hard work and how it can just rub off on other people as well. That, that
Yeah.
energy level, that dedication. I always find that so fascinating. And as I mentioned, Roy Keane and Steven Gerrard for me, who was it for you growing up? I know you played multiple sports, but and when it came to football, was there anyone in particular that you stood out for you?
Yes, there is, and it's kind of funny because obviously I'm a defender, and growing up, the player that actually got me into the love of the game for football was Thierry Henry. My mom had just put on an Arsenal versus, I believe, Manchester United match, and it was during the season that they were the Invincibles. And obviously, the player that Thierry Henry was, he was unbelievable. Had an outstanding career. He'll go down in history as one of the best players to ever play. And I just kind of fell in love with how he played football. Obviously, I can't really learn from him as a player to become a better defender, but obviously you can take anything away from any football player, with just he loved to play. He had fun doing it. He did it with style. He did it his own way. He had his own way of playing, and that kind of was my ticket into football itself, really. Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? You see a match, you see a goal, you see a player, and that's you sort of fixated, on that player, on that, moment, on that match, and all of a sudden you become a fan for life from that moment.
Yeah.
And for Thierry Henry as well, he done very well out in Montreal. He was really well liked out there. It's a pity it didn't last a little bit longer, but even in the coaching side, he was really well loved out in Montreal. So I like that answer, Thierry Henry. Someone I loved growing up as well. What about your favorite food? What do you eat before a game?
So I have changed it up a little bit throughout this whole season. Like I said, I eat the same thing for breakfast every morning.
Yeah.
I'm a person that likes to have um, a regimen. I like to do everything the same. I like to do everything at the same time, whatever, uh, and not change much if I can. So I started out the season always making like pad thai noodles. I'd I'd have rice noodles with chopped up tofu and then some roasted vegetables, onions, carrots, peppers, whatever. and then making a nice pad thai sauce. It's kind of somewhat changed a little bit because my girlfriend has actually gotten quite sick of eating the same thing, but I like to eat, if I can keep it as close as possible, a carb heavy dish with some, lean protein, like tofu, and then, get vegetables just to, obviously stay healthy. Uh, so yeah, that's kind of what it is now. It could change from, say pasta or maybe just another Asian inspired dish, but yeah.
I feel you. My wife is exactly the same. The amount of sheer pasta dishes I cook is unbelievable. She's sick of it, but it is what it is, and it's easy to cook a big batch as well. So that's my go to. What about halftime or anything? Would you have anything at halftime?
I don't really have a set ritual for halftime. I like to kind of just, sit down, digress from the half, say maybe we're losing, or maybe I got into a heated argument, or, a certain play where maybe I got a yellow, uh, and it was maybe a hard tackle, or maybe I got hurt in a tackle. I kind of like to just move on and, take a step away from what happened in the first half and focus on what I need to do in the second half. So I kind of just like to take away for a bit right before, we're going to have our coaches come in, or players step up and say what needs to change, or what we need to keep doing for the second half. And then obviously, there's really important things like water. I like to get electrolytes, some quick sugars, whether it be from Gatorade or gummies or whatever. But not too much. Obviously, I don't want to have a bloated stomach or cramps once I get back out there. But I like to more or less, turn over into, okay, what's next, for my halftime.
Interesting,
Yeah.
interesting stuff as well, because everyone's so different as well at halftime. And what I want to ask you now is about any rituals or superstitions. You've mentioned, you like your regiments and stuff like that. What about prior to a game? Do you have a ritual or something you do before every game of football?
So I guess you could say ritual would really be my, regiment. Um, I like to, I'll put the same sock on first. I'll always, undo my socks and put my right sock on, and then my left sock. Okay, then my right boot goes on first, and then my left boot. I like to always do the same thing, because it just kind of, just puts me in a good mindset where, you know, um, change can, scare people sometimes if something they don't understand, can kind of frighten them. So I like to keep everything, as some used to some stuff that I am used to as possible. So leading up to the game, I'll never feel, oh, whoa, what just happened? Like I'm kind of, in a place that I've never been before. It could be something silly as like, oh, I don't have the right Under Armours for this game, to put on. Is something going to go differently? It could be something silly like that, but I like to just make sure everything's, lining up for me to do the same thing over and over and over.
Fascinating stuff. And another one I want to ask you about, this will be the last one of these questions, is who's the best and who's the worst person to sit beside on those long flights or those long bus trips?
So for the best, I wouldn't say there's a single person, but the type of person. So when you're on a long trip, someone like myself, I do like to keep to myself. So if I'm beside someone, that's a little bit smaller and wants to sleep the whole time, I'm in love. Like that's exactly perfect for me. I gotta do my own thing. I don't gotta worry about anything. I gotta, if I want to sleep, I could sleep. If I want to, just sit there and I don't have to worry about getting up all the time from someone else, or someone, obviously it might sound rude, but someone talking to me. Um, that's my best case scenario. And then obviously the worst type of person might be someone that's, you know, generally bigger, going to get in my space. You know, say I'm in the middle seat, I had no choice. If I had two bigger guys beside me on my team, it's going to really cramp my space. It's going to make me feel a little bit more claustrophobic. And if they're generally making a commotion, noise, moving, then it's going to really suck for me.
It's brilliant, brilliant. I'm glad you didn't name names there. That would have been
Yeah.
really awkward, but that was good fun. That was good fun. And as we wrap this up now, if you could offer one piece of advice to any young person listening to this, what piece of advice would you offer them?
Um, so whenever I have the opportunity to give advice, I actually give the same thing every time. And is whenever you have an opportunity to try or give 100% of yourself in, do it. If you're letting days go by where you kind of just go through the motions and you kind of wasted a day, you could say, you're really hurting yourself. You're not hurting anyone else. No one's gonna suffer from that except yourself. If you let too many days go by where you really didn't try the hardest you could to get better or to work on something, then, like I said, the only person that's going to suffer is you.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that 100%. And for our listeners, this conversation will be filled with lots of golden nuggets that they can take away, that you can take away, and you can apply to yourself in your own footballing journey. And for anyone else that's listening to this, if you're still wondering what this is all about, footballing journey, what's going on, how you can better yourself, check out Matchfit Football, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram for any of your footballing needs. If anyone wants to connect with you, Jordan, where are you online so people can follow your journey?
So I am on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I have the same handle for Twitter and Twitter and Instagram, and it's at 96J Haynes, spelled out just my initial and last name. And I like to keep updated with how my season's going, obviously with what I'm doing on the pitch and sometimes off the pitch. So that's where you can find me. Yeah.
Yeah, guys, check out Jordan's socials. Give him a follow, give him a like, see what he's up to as well. And also check out YouTube, the Pacific FC. All the highlights go up there. If you can't get over to a game, wherever you are in the world, check out the highlights, see what they're up to. They've had a phenomenal season. It's not over yet. There's still some really big football matches to be played. And Jordan, I wish you well in that. I wish Pacific well in that. I'm excited to see what happens for you guys for the rest of the season. And I just want to thank you for your time tonight and thank our listeners for listening in as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I can't wait to see what happens with the season 2. Playoffs coming up and going deep in the Canada Championship. And for the podcast, I love doing stuff like this, and I've had a good chat too. It's been awesome to be here.
Well, Jordan, appreciate that. And guys, thanks again for listening. We'll be back with you next week.